Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the NCSL Dynasty here exclusively on College Football Revamped and more specifically on NCAA 14. We are coming towards that halfway point in the season already. As 14 weeks of the regular season, we are already on week number 6. With teams moving to that halfway mark, who's going to make that push to trying to get bowl eligible or at least get closer to that? Who's going to get closer to trying to compete for a conference championship? And who ultimately is going to compete in order to make it into the college football playoff and be a part of that 12-team field? We'll get closer to those questions and much more in this episode, but we have an exciting one here for you guys here today as we got 16 nationally televised games and much more going on throughout this episode. So I hope you guys are excited for it. If you are, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button for me, hit that subscribe button as well if you do have to be brand new to the channel. Let's go ahead and jump into the football fields scattered around the country. So we will go ahead and get week number 6 action officially underway, and we'll get things started here with the first leg of the Commander's Cup. Air Force going on the road to take on Navy, going all the way across the country for this non-conference matchup, and we initially have a pretty close game on our hands right now. Navy and Air Force are going at it, and we got a tight game between the two teams. Air Force trying to keep themselves in shouting distance, but this drive that Navy is trying to put together towards the end of the first half certainly could be critical in the look of the entire game, as Navy is going to continue to use that ground game. The offense does look a little bit different. There is a new coaching staff at the Naval Academy, so they do spread the ball out a little bit more of it, what we've seen from your daddy's Navy squads, but it has been effective so far as the midshipmen are now in the red zone and are looking to cash it in the red zone, looking for one more throw over to the left-hand side and finds Leslie Cope in the end zone. Touchdown, Navy, and the midshipmen will be able to expand their lead before we do go into the halftime locker room. And the real question of the matter is, does Navy have any juice on them here in this second half? Or will Navy ultimately pull away, as that is a dime? A dime again by this quarterback. He's been dicing up the Air Force defense in this second half. Actually, looks like Navy might be turning this into a blowout after all, which is definitely a little bit of surprise given how competitive this game was for the first two and a half quarters of this game. But it looks like Air Force does indeed not have that juice, as the Naval Academy will win one over the Air Force Academy 43-17 in the first leg of the Commander's Cup. But we do have our fair share of top 25 matchups that are going to be coming in our direction. How about number 11 Alabama? They will be going on the road to take on the number 23 ranked Southern Missouri Golden Eagles. We'll see if the Eagles can soar, or will the tide roll and roll over this Southern Miss squad that's fledgling and some say may be on the rise. It starts right now as Alabama, we jump into the second quarter. A pretty low scoring first quarter, only saw a field goal. However, we do finally see the first offensive touchdown of the game. It's connection from Matt Brashard over to John Concepcion. So Alabama does extend their lead 10-0. Will be your score, as Southern Miss will try to answer back, trying to drop back the pass, looking to try to scramble out of the pocket, but he fumbles the ball, and this could turn into a defensive touchdown. It does. Alabama is rolling. Touchdown, Crimson Tide. And Alabama opening things up here in the first half of action already, not wasting any time against the number 23 ranked team in all of America. But it does beg the question of whether or not Southern Miss is actually legit, or more likely, are they fraudulent? This is going to certainly raise some eyebrows across the country, as Alabama does win convincingly 27-0, as Southern Miss fails to score in this home ranked matchup against the number 11 team in all of college football right now. But we do have some more college games on your way. We actually get our first quad box here, as we do get a check-in on number 22, Nebraska. Nebraska started the year 0-2, but they have been on a 3-game losing streak. They will seek to extend that winning streak up to 4 games, taking on arguably the biggest disappointment of the season in Minnesota. Minnesota was ranked in the top 25, but here they are 1-3. And they're just trying to do their best to try and salvage this season as much as they possibly could. But Minnesota is going to score, so they will at least take the lead. But surely Nebraska could respond back. They got one of the brighter offensive minds in the offensive coordinator, George Gentry, who does happen to be one of your guys' custom coaches as well. But a slow start nonetheless. Minnesota looks to extend their lead as Lou Harrison, he is going to be all by himself, butt naked, open in the end zone. And Nebraska finds themselves down by 8, but with 1:40 left to play, we get a fire from the right-hand side. And how about a streaking man down the sideline? That was William Butler, who was able to take the top off of the defense there. And they will also go for the 2-point conversion in order to tie this game up. Unfortunately, not as successful on the 2-point conversion. It does end up ultimately failing. So Minnesota still finds itself up by a couple of points for right now. But Lou Harrison, with 1:22 left to play, on a 2nd and 16, trying to get it all back and then some. Well, it backfires horribly. So again, Nebraska gets a chance to put on some more points before we go into halftime. Looking over to the left-hand side, and Terrell Harrell able to get out of bounds, able to utilize that 10 toes down movement. So is able to move the chains and stop the clock a little bit, as well as Tim Hayden is able to get shaky with it in the open field. Able to make a man miss and able to pick up a first down there. I just burped a little bit. That's sexy. And so is a touchdown on the ground for Tim Hayden. Tim Hayden scores once again for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and they will carry this lead into the halftime locker room. But we'll see if this Nebraska offense finally has a spark. They're on their pace for their best offensive day of the season, as quarterback has all day to throw the ball and eventually finds Jeremy Jackson open on the curl pattern. Well, I've been tad underthrown, but still got it to him anyways. And it leads to a 1st and 10. Can technically pick up the first down, but it's on the 1-yard line. That won't be necessary, though, as Brent Key is going to punch it in. That's a touchdown for Nebraska once more. And it looks like it's all Cornhuskers here in the second half. It just seems like the Cornhuskers, well, they just simply can't do any wrong right now. It's been incredible to watch, so to speak. But it leads to a 3rd and 1, though. We'll see what Cornelius does. He finds an open Terrell Harrell in the end zone. Touchdown, Nebraska. Cornelius Reed having himself a day, and that day will continue in the 4th quarter when he takes his guys down to the red zone once again. He only gets his 4th passing touchdown. William Butler will be a little bit shy of the goal line, though. So here we are, 2nd and short, and they're going to hand it off to Tim Hayden. Power on power, and the Nebraska offensive line is going to win up front. Able to put up the 40 burger as they win convincingly against the Golden Gophers of Minnesota, 47-14. But we continue our coverage of the early games as we now go down to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The 1-3 Wake Forest Demon Deacons will be taking on the Duke Blue Devils, who are led by their new head coach, PJ McNair, who is one of your guys' custom coaches as well. But a low-scoring start to this rivalry game affair, as both teams do end up exchanging field goals at the start of this game. Really could go in either direction, as we'll see if somebody finally gets an offensive touchdown on the board, and it happens midway through the 2nd quarter as Kevin Nicholson able to drag the feet into the end zone. Touchdown, Duke. And the Duke Blue Devils will maintain, well, they'll have the lead momentarily. Wake Forest does score off screen, though, so Wake Forest does have the lead once again, but Duke will try to respond, trying to get some points on the board before the half, and Sid Silva was trying to trust his man downfield, but NCAA on those jump balls, they really prefer the defender, and Sid Silva found that out the hard way. He's going to have an interception before the half, and it seemed like at that point Wake Forest was going to pull away and win this game. That has been what we've seen from this Duke squad the first couple of seasons. Not a very good Duke football team. I'm surprised that PJ McNair was able to survive the first couple of seasons, but his team is crumbling right in front of him though. That's the third turnover of the day. Wake Forest will eventually turn that into another touchdown, so it's really not looking good for the Duke Blue Devils in this particular rivalry game as of right now. 3rd to 13 is your score, as Silva is going to throw, and it ends up being caught for a touchdown. Duke is starting to slowly but surely work its way back into the game, as Wake Forest is really trying to fumble the bag right now. All of a sudden, we could be looking at a one-possession game as long as Duke can do what they need to do and punch it into the end zone here. 3rd and goal. Silva, he's going to keep it himself, and he's going to keep it his way into the end zone. Touchdown, Duke. The Blue Devils are back in the game. All knotted at 30 to 27 as Wake Forest fails to run out the clock. So now with no timeouts, Duke has a chance to win the game possibly. We have some late game drama now. 1 minute left. 4th and 4. Silva looks to the right hand side. It's caught. First down, Blue Devils. And the Blue Devils are moving downfield. Now at the 30-yard line. Could be on the edge of field goal range, but they want more. Silva looks over the middle. It's caught. First down for Ryan Jackson. Now in the red zone. And they're going to finish it off in the red zone right here, right now. Touchdown, Duke. And they pull off the immaculate, incredible comeback. The Duke Blue Devils win 34-30 being your final score. So we'll see if the other games that we have in today's episode could live up to that kind of dramatics. As now we check in on the number 6 ranked team in the nation, the Miami Hurricanes. And the Hurricanes are hosting Georgia Southern in what is a conference matchup. But Georgia Southern not looking to lie down quietly. They are not going to fail until irrelevancy that easily. Georgia Southern came to play ball as early, as they do start out with an opening touchdown late in the first quarter. But after that, Miami did start to lean up in the gaming chair. Said, all right, that's enough. No, wait a minute. Hold up. Wait a minute. Marcus Amos just threw an interception. Can Georgia Southern cash in? They cannot cash in, though, so you hate to see that. But, I mean, Miami did come across a very stingy defense. As to our old Smoochie Wall is one of your guys' custom players, able to find the end zone there too. But after that initial 6-0 lead for Georgia Southern, it was all Miami after that. Corey Graves will get an interception to make this a goal line opportunity. Looking to possibly make this an option play. It is not, but Caleb Kirk is able to punch it in anyways. So Miami comes out with 35 unanswered points, and they do that in order to win 35-6 against Georgia Southern. And now we check in on Old Dominion, going on the road to take on Virginia Tech. Little bit of a rivalry in the Commonwealth state, as we have a little bit of a freeze up there with the PS3 emulator, but we're able to, not be frozen out, so you love to see that. Old Dominion is playing some good ball. They have been a little bit underrated here in these first 5 weeks of the season, but they're giving Virginia Tech, who was in that ACC championship hunt last year, they're giving Virginia Tech a run for their money. It's been a pretty surprisingly good game, as Old Dominion is going to recover his fumble, and all of a sudden Old Dominion can make this a 2-score game before we go into the halftime locker room. In the closing seconds of that first half, we will see a very short field goal made. So Old Dominion not only with a lead, but a pretty big one as well. 17-point lead going into the final quarter of action. Virginia Tech's quarterback does have all the time in the world, though. That does lead to one of the touchdowns. But It just seems like it was a little bit too little too late, as Old Dominion was able to utilize that lead. They're going to hang on and win it, as Old Dominion wins 30-23, a surprising one here in this episode. But we do get some studio updates, though, as we continue to progress through this week number 6 action. How about Eastern Michigan? They do get back to over 500 as they do take down the Hawkeyes of Iowa State, 41-34. And then how about Louisiana? The Raging Cajuns, well, they were raging on Arkansas in this one, winning by a couple of touchdowns. The Raging Cajuns are still undefeated. They need to be ranked into this top 25, and it needs to happen sooner than later. As for the other studio updates, we got USF in a close game against Eastern Carolina, but the Bulls do win out by a couple of points there. Meanwhile, we have more action coming in as Louisiana Tech able to win another close game against Colorado State, 27-21. Colorado State not the same team. And to wrap things up, the Sun Devils beat BYU 51-30. As now we get into some of the later games that are happening in this episode. We got number 2 USC playing later, but for now we'll check in on this Kansas State and Wisconsin game. Kansas State undefeated still, although their team is vastly inferior on paper than this Wisconsin team that they are coming up against. So we'll see if Kansas State can play above their overall, because when I was doing the previews for these teams, like Kansas State was like a high 70s overall team. So pleasantly surprised that Kansas State was what their record was, but does that run out? Do we finally see Kansas State lose their first game of the season? Wisconsin is certainly trying to provide that blemish for them, as Wisconsin will take the lead within the first minute of this second quarter of action. Joe Bullock able to find the end zone there. However, Kansas State is looking to respond. They're able to drive it down to the red zone themselves, and they'll try to tie this game up. Joel Scott gets a pretty nice carry there, able to pick up 8 yards on that particular carry. And then a couple of plays later, going back to the ground as Joel Scott is able to get a nice hole from his offensive line. And yet here we are, barbecue on the titties. We're looking at a tied ball game yet again. As a matter of fact, we could see Kansas State take the lead, and they will with Joel Scott. How about this for the Kansas State Wildcats? They are leading against Wisconsin. However, I'm showing a special teams play, and you know what that means. Something is about to go down, and it's going down in a big way, down the sideline. Anthony Swanson nearly able to get across midfield there. We'll see if Wisconsin is able to go ahead and take advantage. They do drive deep into Kansas State territory, looking over to the right-hand side. He's got a nice out route to Travis Green. The corner route goes for 31, and it puts Wisconsin in the red zone, and they will cash in that red zone opportunity. Big day for both of the running backs in this ball game as we go tied at 21 at the half. It has been an extraordinarily entertaining game to watch so far, going back and forth, and we got a Moss moment to include in the highlights too. That is insane. Wisconsin now looking to take the lead halfway through the third quarter, and that request will be accepted. Joel Bullock will help Wisconsin take the lead. In the last couple of seconds in the third quarter, we see Joel Bullock run it again on the ground. Solid running day for him. He's got over almost 150 yards himself, and we'll see if he gets to add on to those numbers again. He does. Joel Bullock again finds the end zone for Wisconsin, and after that, the Badgers, well, they just never look back after that. Wisconsin provides the very first loss of the season to the Wildcats of Kansas State. Now, that being said, we got LSU with a non-conference matchup on its hands. They're going to be taking on Bowling Green. Imagine if LSU made the trek up I-75 to Bowling Green, Ohio. That would truly be a sight to behold, and so is this score. Bowling Green actually has the lead against the LSU Tigers. Maybe they are the little engine that could. They did go to the American Conference Championship game back in year number 2, but LSU likes to remind people exactly who they are, and it's all knotted up at 7 apiece as LSU looks to try to finally get their first lead of the game. That's why it's been so close. LSU has kind of stumbled out the gates a little bit here as we're looking at a 2nd and short with a 7-yard gain on the way. How about another touchdown for LSU as Derek Brown is going to be responsible for getting it into the end zone this time around. Yeah, it seems like that lead is going to be a distant memory for Bowling Green as they have not been able to contain Derek Brown in the pocket. Crazy thing is, I'm pretty sure Bowling Green had a spy on that particular play, and Derek Brown was able to still turn that into a first down. Imagine that. They're just riding behind their quarterback right now, who's been doing some really tough running here in this first half, as it leads to yet another 1st and goal situation, setting up the triple option, and Quentin Williams, well, nobody goes with him, and LSU extends the lead 24-7. Now your score, and they're looking for a 30-burger. They will get the 30-burger as Sean Callahan punched it in. The Bowling Green faithful are being absolutely shocked, bamboozled, mystified, as they show that they have a lot of work to do in order to compete with the big boys in the NCSL. And LSU shows exactly why. Bowling Green does make it close, but those 22 points in the 4th quarter, I mean, it was definitely in garbage time. But now we check in on that number 2 USC squad as they go on the road out in Reno, Nevada. They'll be taking on the Wolfpack. The Wolfpack been putting together a pretty good season themselves. They're 3-1 coming into this game, but a win against USC would be a massive statement one. And how about this? If you're going to pull the upset on USC, you got to fool Ben Scott. Ben Scott did not have a clear picture on that play, and it does lead to the interception. Now Nevada is going to try to put the drive together, and they do! Quentin Perkins scores for the Wolfpack of Nevada. That is Perkins' first career receiving touchdown of the year. I just burped again a little bit. Still a little on that sexy side. USC is in trouble. Are they going to be on upset alert? I certainly think that they are right now. It hasn't been pretty at all, as we are going to see USC take the lead, though. Backup running back Jacob James responsible for the touchdown. But Nevada's given it everything that they have. They have a really good fight on their hands there. And I think this Nevada team, if they play like they are right now for the rest of the season, I think we will eventually see Nevada ranked in that top 25. But for now, Nevada, well, they're actually going to have a 1-point lead going into the halftime locker room. 2 quarters away from pulling the upset on the number 2 team in college football. But there's a lot that can happen in this second half still. And Ben Scott is certainly starting to happen right now. We see them with a rushing touchdown on the ground. And then next red zone possession, because Nevada has a quick 3 and out. Well, they again throw it out on the 2-point convert. That was actually a 2-point conversion. I thought it wasn't a 2-point conversion, but it actually was. Should have been converted, but the receiver couldn't get his he just could not get those feet down, to say the least. But USC still only up by 8 points, though, but Nevada looks like they're starting to run out of gas. The talent on the depth charts, I think, is really starting to show between these two teams at the present moment. 1st and goal coming up, though, as Ben Scott is going to hand it off on the perimeter, looking over to the right-hand side, and Matt Sullivan is going to score. Touchdown, USC! And the Trojans are really starting to pull away now, this being their biggest lead of the day. And Ben Scott, he wants a dagger. He is trying to run through Nevada defenders. And that's just type of toughness that endears you to a city, to a college community, as Ben Scott finishes the job by himself. Gets tackled after the he already has crossed into that goal line. Would have been called a late flag if NCAA 14 knows how to call late hits. They don't. But looks like USC is going to make this one of those scores where it was closer than what the score actually says, because unless something crazy happens here, USC is going to put up a 40-burger. Yep, there it is, a 40-burger from USC. Trojans are going to win, but make no mistake, Nevada was competing in this game, He just ran out of juice in that second half, and it shows in his box score. But now we get back into the Octo Box as multiple top 25 teams are getting ready to go into work. We got all those games going, plus Ole Miss in Southern Alabama kicking off very shortly. So before we get into that top 25 matchup, let's check in on these other top 25 teams that are playing in this evening slate. UCLA, number 10 team in the country. They are hosting the Tar Heels of North Carolina. Should be an intriguing non-conference matchup, likely the last non-conference matchup for both teams as they try to win their respective conferences or get some prestige for their conference that they represent. Slow start though for UCLA and for North Carolina too. Neither team really able to find the end zone in the first half, having to completely rely on field goals in order to generate any sort of offense. But in the third quarter, that does eventually change. UCLA finally scores a touchdown. We finally get to witness one with Chad Black finding the end zone there with 3 minutes to go. And then next possession, Brian Daniels keeping it on a read option himself. He'll find the end zone there as well. And UCLA starts to pull away here in that second half. While that offense has been inconsistent, defensively, UCLA has been playing some really good football, and North Carolina is finding that out the hard way as they're also still looking for their first offensive touchdown of the game. They're trying to convert this 3rd and 1 first, though, and I mean, just nothing easy happening for North Carolina, except somehow Victor Britt does get that first down there, so you like to see that. Does provide the Tar Heels with a goal line opportunity, a fresh set of downs to work with, where Danny Bates keeps it himself, finds the end zone. We got a touchdown for the Tar Heels of North Carolina, but their defense needs to come through and get some stops as well. UCLA able to find points on the board in the second half, and Brian Daniels looks to keep that going, as thought we saw him get a little bit shaken up there, but he will still remain in this game, and he'll hand it off to his trusty tailback, Jake Cook, who finds the end zone for the Bruins. So an ugly performance for UCLA, but in the second half, they got it together, and they win convincingly versus this North Carolina squad. But now we check in on the number 8 team in the nation, the Seminoles of Florida State. An interesting non-conference matchup here as well. Maryland coming off the road in a 2-1 record. We'll see if they can pull a big one. If Maryland wins this game, I would imagine that Maryland would find themselves in the top 25. How is that not an illegal man down the field? I don't know. The refs seem like they missed a call there. I'm sure the Maryland faithful are going to be irate. Absolutely irate that we did not see some sort of flag there. But you got to still play ball at the end of the day. You got to put yourself in a position to where you really don't need to rely on the refs to make a correct call, because that doesn't always happen, as Maryland will look to tie the game here in the second quarter. Good running by Elliott Williams, but he can't stay in bounds. Could have had a touchdown, was able to keep his feet in bounds, but didn't quite happen there. Won't matter long term on the scoreboard though. Brian Powers will score. So 4 minutes left in this first half. Florida State trying to put together yet another drive and just leaning on Daryl Bodiford here in order to lead him down the field. Does eventually lead to a Florida State touchdown, but not before Maryland responds with a field goal of their own. It's only going to be a 4-point game. In the last couple of seconds, Florida State will take a field goal of their own. A good drive in the first half, to end the first half for Daryl Bodiford and company, as Florida State will take that 7-point lead indeed into the locker room. Now, we jump into the second half of action, and still a very close game between these two teams in particular. Florida State's going to go ahead, get a field goal up on the scoreboard, makes it 20-10 there. But then we get into the fourth quarter. Still, again, field goals have been the theme. The kickers have been pretty busy here today. Been a lot of work for these kickers in this one, but Florida State has a chance to shove the door on this upstart Maryland team to stop the upset alerts happening, and Daryl Bodiford will put the ultimate nail in the coffin. Florida State is going to beat Maryland 27-20, as the Seminoles will remain unbeaten over the course of the season. And speaking of those Florida teams, how about the number 13 ranked Florida Gators? They've been a surprise here in the first 5 weeks of the NCSL. Well, now they're hosting a Tennessee team that, while isn't ranked in the top 25 as of right now, they are undefeated. This is a big test here for the Tennessee Volunteers, who really haven't played anybody to this point of the year, but if they're able to beat Florida on the road, I would imagine Tennessee will be ranked at the very end of this episode when we do check for updates on that top 25 poll. But now we're looking at a 2nd and goal coming up as the Volunteers will look to take the lead. Strong running onto the outside, but Sam Graves can't punch it in. Now, I feel like that might have been some poor vision, which is why he may be the backup running back instead of the starting running back. Thankfully, doesn't hurt him too much there. Tim Randrum does finish the job, but hey, Florida certainly made it tough to get into the end zone there. I feel like the Volunteers will need to eventually get more than 10 points in order to win this game, but it's a decent start for the Volunteers, though. As we get into the last 80 seconds of the first half, Landrum facing some pressure, steps up in the pocket, throws. He's got a man open for a massive gain. Bo Burns able to get to the midfield logo. How about Tim Landrum showing some patience over there in the pocket, but as we were praising Tim Landrum, he throws an interception. Oh, baby, what are we doing? Florida now has a chance to take the lead with less than a minute left. Fires over the middle of the field. He's found a receiver who breaks a couple of tackles, and Scott Flores picks up 18 before the Gators do have to use a timeout. They do have a couple of timeouts remaining, as we'll have another throw to the right-hand side. Somehow caught by Corey Harper. Well, I thought that defender had the interception, but it somehow goes through his hands. And more importantly, he got out of bounds, saves those timeouts. He's got 2 more to work with. And this QB just has all day to throw the football. BJ Peters, I mean, he's chilling in the pocket right now. His offensive line doing really just a beautiful job of creating that perfect protection for him. And that offensive line is definitely the MVP on that particular drive, as they will end up taking the lead, and they get the ball to start the second half as well. So that's a little bit of a double whammy for Tennessee, just having them get momentum into the half. Plus, we see them extend their lead even more so. Feels like Florida is going to break this game wide open, as there was nobody covering Corey Harper there. So Corey Harper is going to practically walk into the end zone. Had to work for the last couple of yards, but I mean, for the most part, he was able to walk that into the end zone. That's going to be a touchdown for the Florida Gators. And Florida wins convincingly against Tennessee, exposing the Volunteers as potential frauds. But now we check in on the number 3 team in America, the Buckeyes of Ohio State, as we take a nice little trip up to the Midwest, up I-75, a little bit off that beaten path, though. We go to Oxford, Ohio, where they'll be taking on the Red Hawks of Miami. And this Miami team, they actually showed up and played some ball. They're going to be up quite a bit against this Ohio State team. Could extend this 17-0 going into the halftime locker room, as well as that's a beautiful throw. I mean, that could have not been thrown more perfectly, and oh man, this is a surprise of the day so far. Ohio State fighting for its life right now. It took them 2.5 quarters just to score, as Vincent Gold also got hurt in this game. So now Ohio State's down to their 3rd-string quarterback, Zach Mills. And you're going to be asking a 3rd-string quarterback to try and lead you back. Down by 18 with 7.5 to play. I mean, this is just a tough spot to be in if you're an Ohio State fan, as Jonathan Sherman does get him closer to the goal line at least, but surprised they're still running the ball as much as they are, because they're down by so much, and there's not a lot of football left to be playing here. Zach Mills does a nice job moving the pocket as the surprise Arizona native. He's going to find the end zone through the air. See if they go for the 2-point conversion. It looks like that they will indeed go for that 2-point conversion, which does end up being successful. So a little glimmer of life for the Ohio State Buckeyes here. With 2:22 left to play, though. Trying to score yet again. Ohio State scores. But then right after that, though, they run out of juice. Miami is going to pull out the biggest upset of the season, taking down the number 3 Ohio State Buckeyes. So we'll see if South Alabama is going to be in that very same upset alert special, as they got a top dog from the Dixie Division. Key Dixie Division game here is whoever wins this game is going to increase their chances, of course, of winning the Sun Belt. South Alabama, I believe they do have a win over Alabama, if I'm not mistaken, or they play in the future, but I'm pretty sure those two teams have already played. But I would imagine that they are focusing in on this number 17 ranked Ole Miss squad, and South Alabama putting together a drive, and that drive ends up leaving them into the end zone. Touchdown Jaguars, as they will take a 7-0 lead against Ole Miss. What has been quite the defensive struggle here in the pouring rain down in Mobile, Alabama. We got ourselves a game on our hands, as Ole Miss is going to go deep down the field, and Ole Miss responds right away. Touchdown, Dedrick Hill. Dedrick Hill is just going to go ahead. He's going to take a little top off of the defense. That was just a beautiful throw down the sideline. No guarding it, especially with the amount of space that he certainly had to work with down that sideline. So we're now looking at a tied ball game at 7 apiece, as Ole Miss in the third quarter looking to actually take the lead here. How about that throw by Eric Archie? That throw had to be on a rope, and sure enough, he got to Jonathan Medlock on a rope. This is not an easy throw to make at all, and Eric Archie, I mean, he's got the arm talent to pull that off. So now South Alabama is the team that is down, but they're going to look for the big shot too, and just that little bit of underthrow cheese happening there. Marvin Steele with a 46-yard reception. It does lead to a field goal for South Alabama. So now 14-10 does end up being your score, as the Ole Miss Rebels are looking to pull away here in the fourth quarter. Justin Florida is going to try and help out with that particular effort, as Justin Florida will punch it into the end zone. But South Alabama looking for revenge, trying to get back into the game. He's got a nice run up the right hand side, and William Payne, the FCS transfer, that does have to be coming in from James Madison back when they were spending time at the FCS level there. But hey, man, it is what it is. South Alabama has got a chance to get the 2-point conversion. However, that does end up failing there. South Alabama, that's as close as they're going to get. South Alabama ends up losing 21-16. And it looks like Ole Miss will start to have that inside track in the Dixie Division. But we do get some more studio updates. And how about this for a little bit of a shocker? Kansas is able to shock number 18 ranked Iowa 45-42. The Kansas Jayhawks, because of that, will get their second win of the season. And then in other news, we have another score coming in, and it's yet another upset. Oregon this time shocking Rice in overtime, 33-27. As we're now starting to close out on the remaining games left in this episode, at least they're being nationally televised. We got Georgia, ranked number 7, taking on a team that's probably in the top 10 in terms of worst teams in the country, South Carolina. They have not won a single game yet this season. That's why they have the thumbnail that you guys see clicking on this video, as well as the title that's with this video as well. I think you could already guess why South Carolina was showed as the thumb there. Georgia is still in a close game with South Carolina, though. Georgia is only up by a possession, but that will change quickly, though, as Sean Garcia will find the end zone through the air the first time today. Georgia does make it a 17-3 game, but South Carolina you know, those Gamecocks, well, this season has certainly not gone the way that they wanted this season to go. They're still playing with a lot of pride. They're still playing with a lot of resiliency, as South Carolina does work themselves into the game. They call that a passing touchdown for Andy Triplett. That's a pretty liberal way to describe a passing touchdown, but hey, different strokes for different folks according to the stat guys, as that is a dot to Brandon Chance. How about fighting off a defender too? Good throw, an even better catch though, as Georgia will quickly work to the line of scrimmage in the red zone, looking for another touchdown, and they'll get that touchdown. This one going back to Sean Garcia. That's the second score of the day. So Georgia with a pretty sizable lead, but by no means is it a completely insurmountable lead, though. We've already seen a few upsets happen. Ohio State losing, Rice losing, Iowa losing. Does Georgia join that list of top 25 teams that end up falling here in week number 6, though? Looks like this Georgia offense is certainly trying to avoid that, as we got a goal line situation. Scott Smart is just going to calmly punch it into the end zone there, though. Bulldogs will extend their lead back to a couple of possessions, and that was as close as South Carolina ever got, as Gamecocks are still searching for their first win in the year. But we do have one more game left in this episode, though, before we check on some other scores around the country. A little bit of Mountain West action here. Utah, who is 2-2, will be taking on UNLV, who's 2-3. And listen, the Mountain West is not playing as high of a level overall as we saw them play last year, between UNLV being down compared to last season, and then Colorado State and BYU, teams that were either ranked, ending ranked in the top 25 or finishing in top 25. It's been a down year for the conference, but someone has to win a bid from this conference, though. Whoever wins this game does get the inside track to getting one step closer to winning that Mountain West Conference Championship, though. And it looks like UNLV is taking that a little bit more seriously. Late in the first quarter, they already do have a 4-point lead. They're looking to extend that lead even further, though. Quarterback's going to drop back in the pocket, throw towards the middle of the field, and he just never saw that safety. He never had a chance to see that safety, and so Utah's going to make a pay for it, gets the interception, and that interception is going to turn into 6 points the other way, as Willie Bradford leads his guys down the field, is able to get a score off of that. So Utah does find themselves in the lead in what has been a tad bit of a defensive battle here. It's 10-10 now, being your score, as this run will help punch into the end zone. Touchdown Utah. So now 17-10 now being your score, as we'll see Bradford drop back to pass. Utah looking to extend their lead. There's a ball on the ground, though, and UNLV is going to recover. The same guy that fumbles the ball does stop it from being a possible scoop and score, so you applaud the effort, and that effort really did matter there, because UNLV does stall out shortly after they get that turnover, so it is a lost opportunity there for UNLV to tie this game. Instead, they're going to be down by multiple possessions going into the final quarter of action. That score will help, though. Antonio Barnes able to get the 10 toes down before getting out of bounds. But Utah looking to play it away once and for all. Bradford looks over the middle, finds a receiver by the name of Ryan Gatewood. He's looking to gatekeep UNLV from their third win of the season. And Bradford will gladly indulge in that opportunity, as Utah does make it a 10-point game. Puts UNLV in quite a bit of trouble, as UNLV could not score in their next possession. And Utah trying to get into their 4-minute offense, but wait a minute now. Hold up. UNLV got another turnover, and now it's the Rebels with a chance to possibly make some excitement happen in the last moments of the game. UNLV scores. Don't need the onside kick, but they got a chance. Can they recover the onside kick? And it's going to be recovered by Utah. Rebels gave them a run for their money. I gotta give them back, but Utah does win their third game in a year. They win a close one out in the Sin City, 27-24. But now let's go ahead and take a look around the country to see what was happening in other games around the country. Remember when we had Notre Dame ranked in the top 25? Yeah, that's not going to last very long, as Western Kentucky is going to shock the world. They take down Notre Dame 24-14. This is a big win for one of your guys' custom coaches and offensive coordinator, Doug Rose. But San Diego State is still not one of those teams ranked in the top 25, but maybe we should reconsider that though, as they blow out Stanford 45-13. The Aztecs are having a very good first half of the season, improving their record to 4-2, and usually winning pretty convincingly too. However, one top 25 team that does make its first appearance of the year is Army. Army has been undefeated, but they have started the year off unranked. That is no longer the case though, as they take down Texas State 42-20, as the Black Knights are now number 23 in the entire country. Meanwhile, the Missouri Tigers continue their unbeaten streak to start the season. They win 34-20, and this was one of the lesser known games, but pretty good game nonetheless. Central Michigan is, however, handed their first loss of the year. As for the Memphis Tigers, though, they continue Sun Belt Conference action against the Auburn Tigers, so a little bit of tiger-on-tiger violence. However, Memphis is able to survive in double overtime. Memphis wins 40-37 to climb to number 21 in the entire country. As for the Washington Huskies, we're now going from Tigers to Huskies. Washington will still remain undefeated, but struggled a little bit defensively as they give up 37 to Tulsa. However, the Hurricanes of Tulsa are still searching for their first win of the season, dropping this one on the road by 12 points. In the round out your notable box scores, we have the Michigan Wolverines still flying through this season. They take down Kent State pretty easily in this one, 56-14 being your final score, as the Wolverines will now be ranked in the top 5 in the entire country. But now let's go ahead and take a look at that top 25. Speaking of that, since we did have some changes, notably starting at number 4, Miami is able to move up 2 spots to number 4. They are receiving a first place vote as well after a 29-point win over Georgia Southern. Hawaii, they were on bye this week, but they still move up 3 spots anyways. They take on Stanford next week on the road. Florida State moves up 1. California, the California Golden Bears on bye, but they move up 7 spots anyway, so a lot more respect given to Cal all of a sudden. They'll have a big test next week on the road against UCLA. Looking through the rest of the top 25, we do see Ohio State. They're going to have the biggest drop of the week. They fall down 11 spots after a shocking loss to the University of Miami in Oxford, 21-24. We saw that in gameplay. Ole Miss, we saw them take on South Alabama on the road and win, and they move up 2 spots because of that. Missouri moves up 5 spots after their 2-score win over the Chippewas. Louisiana Monroe, the Ragin' Cajuns, 6-0, and finally getting some respect. They win 24-10 against Arkansas, and so we'll see how the Ragin' Cajuns handle these expectations. They are eligible to go bowling no matter what they do the rest of the year. Looking through the remainder of the top 25, we see Rice down at 19. They lose in overtime against Oregon. Nebraska is up 2. Memphis is up 3 spots to number 21 in the country. And rounding out your top 25 is Arkansas at 22. Army coming in from the unranks, they're at 23. Oregon back in, they're at number 24 in the country. And then South Alabama is still hanging on in spite suffering their second loss of the season. They're at number 25, and they actually will take on Alabama in the next episode. So we're starting to see the ranks of the unbeatens starting to sliver out a little bit, and that could have a big role in who ends up getting into the college football playoff down the line. We're starting to close in on that first half of the season. So what I'm curious from you guys is, what was your biggest surprise so far this year, and what's your biggest disappointment? Let me know for sure down in the comment section. But guys, this is going to wrap up another episode of the NCSL Dynasty here on NCAA 14 and featuring that college football revamp as well, the newest version of college football revamp to go with it. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button for me, and hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. This is John J Gaming on the mic signing off, but hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.